Random House Audio presents The Mark Inside, a perfect swindle, a cunning revenge, and a small history of the big con, by Amy Reading. Read for you by Richard McGonagle. Prologue. The train screeches into Union Station with a whistle and a chuff of steam. A man disembarks, breathes in the dry mountain air, and steps unnoticed into the slipstream of the new city, guarding his anonymity with silence and caution. Before anything else, before even showing his face in a hotel lobby, he must change his appearance. A barber will not be sufficient for what he has in mind. He heads down 17th Street in search of a beautician. Under the ministrations of a young woman whose curiosity about him must go unsatisfied, the man's gray hair is dyed dark brown, and so are his shaggy eyebrows and long mustache. The eyebrows are left to form a hood over his glittering blue eyes, but the mustache is trimmed and curled at the ends in a clumsy attempt at style. His thick hair is shaped into a supremely unflattering bowl cut, long enough in the back to form a roll of hair over his collar. The man begins to arrange his features to match his new appearance. Later, in his hotel room, he opens his valise and selects a straw-colored linen suit. It is light enough for the August weather, and it has a strap across the back that pulls the fabric into a little gather. He decides this unfashionable feature will aid his disguise, which is rapidly evolving to be that of a Texas cotton grower. He will hunch himself over, he thinks, like a man who has picked cotton his whole life. The suit's only liability is that its thin fabric cannot conceal a gun holster. He tucks a gun in at his hip and conceals it with his hand, as if his bones ache. A cane in the other hand, a small Panama hat perched on his new cut, and his disguise is complete. He spends some time before his bathroom mirror practicing his new slow gait. He pitches his voice up an octave and draws it out in a country twang. His features have settled into a pleasant, open countenance. And all the while, he runs through his story in his mind. He knows that his costume is important, but his story is crucial. Everything will depend on how convincingly he plays his role. He mentally rehearses the sequence of scenes, tries out a few improvisations. The man is confident the story will work. He has told countless versions of it, and he knows it well. And he knows the Mark's responses almost better than his own lines. The Mark has no idea how long the man has been studying his movements, actions, and habits. Only one task remains. The man sits down at his hotel desk and begins to write. In short order, he produces a small sheaf of letters, some of them in his own large, looping handwriting, and others in a smaller, feminine style. One letter in particular requires his utmost attention, a letter to himself from his wife back home in, he thinks for a moment, Ferris, Texas. He keeps it short and legible at a glance. Several phrases seem to leap off the page. The 100-acre oil lease and drillers have struck oil. Smiling to himself, he ends the letter with a truly heartbreaking expression of love and devotion, then proceeds to fold, crease, and stain his little collection of letters until they look as if they've been read and reread. He places them in a pocket, picks up his hat and cane, and sets forth on the downtown streets. It is time to announce his presence in the city. He slowly makes his way up and down 17th Street, his back bent, surveying the passers-by from underneath his hat and his eyebrows. It doesn't take long to spot his mark. He knew it wouldn't, and a small electric charge runs down his back. They are in front of the post office, and together with invisible choreography, the man and his mark enter the lobby. With deliberateness, the man hobbles to the general delivery window and asks loudly, "Any mail for L.A. Mulligan?" And the con has begun. Chapter 1. Confidence. J. Frank Norfleet was feeling confident as he strode into the St. George Hotel in Dallas. He'd just arrived from Dublin, Texas, where he'd sold a carload of mules at an admirable profit. He was a prosperous 54-year-old rancher from the Texas Panhandle, a third-generation pioneer who had worked his whole life to turn the prairie, now swept clean of Indians and buffalo, into a profitable ground for agriculture and livestock. Since he was a teenager, he'd herded sheep and hogs, driven cattle across the open range, and fenced thousands of acres of pasture land. He'd made foreman on the Spade Ranch in Hale County at a young age and saved his modest wages until, when he was 49, he was finally able to afford his own land. He purchased about 8,000 acres near the Spade Ranch and continued to raise livestock in small numbers, investing the profits in adjacent land until his ranch had grown to 20,000 acres. On this November day in 1919, he was in Dallas for his biggest deal yet. He planned to sell 2,050 acres of improved land and use the proceeds to buy a choice 10,000-acre parcel from the nearby ranch of Captain Dick Slaughter, the heir of a renowned cattle baron. Norfleet was as straight as they come. He had banned gambling from the Spade Ranch. "I don't drink, chew tobacco, smoke, cuss, or tell lies," he would say, his light blue eyes glinting. "The last is the most important. I never tell a damn lie." His fierce work ethic and his ability to turn manual labor into a small fortune rightly gave him confidence, hard-earned, time-tested confidence in his own discernment, which in turn allowed him to bestow his trust on others. He prized honesty and square dealing above all else. His word was his bond, and he planned to seal the Slaughter deal with a handshake, because a man wore his integrity as visibly as he wore his mustache. But to anyone watching, J. Frank Norfleet looked exactly like a sucker. At 5'5" in his cowboy boots, he towered above exactly no one. And with his legs bowed from years in the saddle and his suit pants shoved into his boots, he was conspicuous as someone out of his league in the big city. And there were in fact 2 people watching him make his entrance. 2 members of the cast who were already at their stations, in costume and with their lines at the ready. Reno Hamlin sat in the hotel lobby while one of his colleagues hovered just outside the building, peering inside for Hamlin's signal. Hamlin had dressed to match Norfleet, and with his square head, thick neck, and stocky build, he made a convincing Texas countryman. Hamlin could see from yards away the palpable relief in the cowboy's eyes when he spotted one of his own kind among the urbanites, and the 2 men soon fell to talking. Hamlin introduced himself as Miller, a mule buyer from Hill County, Texas. He had also just arrived in Dallas, but his mind was on where he'd come from. "I saw the best carload of mules unloaded at Dublin the other day I ever saw in this country," he told Norfleet. "I want to buy a carload just like them." Norfleet's eyes lit up. Sure enough, Hamlin had unknowingly been admiring Norfleet's mules, and within minutes they had given each other their word that Hamlin would buy a shipment of them, as well as 2 freight cars of Kaffir corn and maize. After the initial onrush of good feeling, Norfleet explained to his new friend that he couldn't deliver his goods right away because he was stuck in the city searching for a buyer for his farm and waiting for Captain Slaughter to return to Dallas so they could close the land deal. "Norfleet, I may help you out," said Hamlin. He had a friend who was a purchasing agent with the Green Immigration Land Company in Minneapolis, a businessman scouting land in Texas. Perhaps he might be interested in Norfleet's land? Hamlin gave the secret signal to his confederate out on the sidewalk. Into the hotel lobby strode W.B. Spencer, and amid exclamations of surprise over the coincidence, Hamlin introduced him to...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?